Hey everyone. So the lunar nodes, the north node and the south node, are going to be moving signs very soon. We've got the north node currently, at the time of me recording this, in the sign of Pisces, and we've got the south node in the sign of Virgo. But they are going to be moving into the signs of Aquarius and Leo, respectively. The lunar nodes move in a retrograde motion. So, of course, they're moving back into new signs rather than forward into new signs. So North Node is going to move from Pisces into Aquarius. It's going to hit the anaretic degree of Aquarius at this nodal shift. And then we've got South Node in Virgo. South Node is going to ingress in a retrograde motion into the sign of Leo. So we're moving from mutable energy into fixed energy. And this next period of this lunar node cycle, 18 months or so, is going to be very, very interesting because it denotes a new path for us as a collective. Now, of course, we've got certain things playing out within our own chart. That is our soul's blueprint. And where is this nodal shift happening for you? We're going to have this heightened energy around the anaretic degree of Leo and Aquarius. But of course, in itself is an ending and beginning, because it's the beginning of a new nodal cycle. But because the nodes are hitting the anaretic degree, because of the fact they move in a retrograde motion, it's also symbolizing an ending. And it is an ending also because of, switching signs. But it just feels very prominent this time because of moving from mutable into fixed. There's almost this flow state that many of us have been in, including some chaotic moments with the energy, of course, and the intensity of that. But the flow state then becomes a determined state with the fixed energy. And with the North Node moving into Aquarius, it's very much a humanity-driven path forward, moving away from the Leo energy that can be more of an egoic, in terms of an unhealthy ego, and hiding oneself state of being. So we want to maintain and uphold the Leo qualities of courage and heart-led regal authority, absolutely. And bear in mind, we're also in Leo season. So let's embrace that fire energy and that courage. But remember, the South Node is where we're sort of moving away from in the direction of the North Node. I think of it as a springboard, so we can utilize the traits that are there that help us align with where we're going, and of course that which is for our highest good, and we can enable that to springboard us towards the North Node. So yes, we want to kind of sever ties with any unhealthy ego, and we want to detach from this feeling of not being good enough to be seen for who we are in that authentic way. We need to put the crown on our head, or even straighten the crown, and deal with the fact that we're sovereign and we have that capacity within us to lead from a heart-centered way. Okay, in that very Leo way of, this is me and this is the direction I'm going in, okay, and I'm owning it. So we can still apply that energy even with this shift with the South Node. But of course, with the South Node moving from Virgo back into Leo, this cycle where we've had the South Node in Virgo for the past 18 months has really been about detaching from, cycles where we've perhaps had too many expectations of what things should be, how they should feel, how they should look, that perfectionist trait that Virgo can kind of embody. But of course, the great thing with Virgo is there's very much this quality of being of service, and there's a very organized approach and having that control. But we also want to detach from areas where, we've tried to control the outcome of things. We've realized over the past 18 months that's not going to work, because things are going to happen and we've got no control over them. The only thing we can control is, of course, our intuition and our inner compass guiding us forward, because the North Node has been in Pisces. So that's what the past 18 months has possibly taught you, if this is resonating for you. It's about shifting away from controlling the outcome of something, embodying more of that flow state and allowing your intuition to guide you forward. Now, discernment has been key to this, because Saturn and Neptune, when they were task teaming it in Pisces, absolutely showed us to get in alignment with our spiritual truth, to awaken to the truth of what's been hidden, and to accept that we need to get into alignment with what our soul is showing us. And that has caused a lot of further awakenings on the planet amongst the collective. So it's really to get us into that state of being comfortable with our intuition, and it's up to us. That's what we can control. You know, we can't necessarily control the outcome of things, and that's what South Node in Virgo and detaching from that has taught us, hopefully. It's more about understanding what our intuition is showing us, and if we choose to listen to it or not, because we've got free will. Okay, but the gift is within us to do that and to follow that. Now, with this nodal shift, it's changing things up a bit. And also, Saturn and Neptune are now in Aries, as you probably are aware. And they're both in retrograde at the time of this nodal shift. So there's still some introspection going on, but this time it's about sovereignty, and it's about what we want and the boundaries that we need to put in place, the rules that we have for ourselves, and the truth that we're awakening to about who we are. So there is a sovereign message there, and it's all about the self, Aries energy, first house energy. Okay, but back to the nodes, you know, with the South Node ingressing backwards into Leo, it's definitely about shedding those layers of unhealthy ego. And this might trigger some people, but it's kind of moving away from the look at me, look how great I am. You know, it's moving away from that into more of an authentic, heart-led authority, sovereignty, leadership. Okay. In other words, I own who I am, and I'm not afraid to be seen in terms of who I am. Not the look at me, how wonderful I am. You know, there's a difference. So we need to have that courage. We need to have the Leo poise, and to not be afraid of being seen for who we are. It's about not putting on a show, basically. So that's an important message. And with the North Node moving into Aquarius, as I said, it's humanity driven. And Aquarius rules the 11th house. Now, this is going to happen in whatever house it happens in your chart. It's just to say that Aquarius is the ruler of the 11th house. So there is a collective approach to this, and it does feel very much in the direction of collective, but also Aquarius upholds a uniqueness, that individuality that makes us unique and even a little bit quirky. Who cares? This is who we are. Remember that Leo courage. This is who I am. I'm not afraid to be seen for who I am. So that's how the energy can work well together, because it's all about putting ourselves forward in a heart-led way with that kind of feeling of not being afraid of showing yourself in terms of who you are on that unique individual basis, and embracing your individuality first and foremost, getting comfortable with that. Okay. Not following the herd, not trying to do what other people are doing just because it looks cool to do it. If it doesn't ring true to you deep within, that's a facade. So it's about upholding your unique individuality whilst also being driven by the needs of humanity and the collective, and how, you know, we're coming together more in that way to support each other as a collective. And even in your groups that are in alignment with yourself, you know, because again, the past few years have taught us about our connections with people and which ones are in alignment with our truth and which ones are not. And so we're moving forward in that way. And I can't mention Aquarius without mentioning technology. And it's no secret that there has been so many technological advances over the recent few years. And particularly now, it just seems to have excelled in like it's such a speed, such a rate. And there's good things about it and maybe not so good things about it. And I don't want to be negative Nelly about it because, great, we do have to roll with the times. This is the reality of what goes on in our own evolution, in our own life. So, of course, things are going to advance because that's the nature of what happens. And that's great. And there are some fantastic tools out there that we can utilize to support us in what we're doing, to perhaps make things more efficient for us, which gives us more time to do other things. Brilliant. But what I don't necessarily agree with, and I'm getting on my soapbox a bit about this, is the sort of replacement takeover aspect of it. So pulling that together with what's going on, we are moving in the direction of a technological age. We know this anyway, and we've got Pluto in Aquarius. Things are transforming in this age of Aquarius that is in alignment with how technology can help us move forward. Yes, absolutely. And we shouldn't dismiss that because, as I said, there are tools that can help us to make things more efficient for us, which is going to hopefully free up more time for us to do the things that we are passionate about and things that we care about, spending time with people we care about, etc. But let's not advocate any kind of replacement utilizing those tools. And I'm not going to go any further than that, but we're having to use our discernment because often we don't know if what we're seeing is actually real anymore. Hence why we need to embrace our uniqueness, our individuality, and have the courage to show ourselves as our true self, not a carbon copy of what is being shown that might not even be real. Okay? So the humanity-driven path forward, the collective mission, if you like, and us embracing our individuality, the path moving forward. We've got the memo from North Node in Pisces previous of trusting our intuition and using our discernment in that moving forward. And of course, not dismissing the tools that are available to us, but the caveat being maintain your uniqueness and individuality. Don't get lost in all of that too much. That's what I would say with that. Okay. Now I'm going to pull up the chart and I'm going to show you the moment when these nodes make their shift. And it'll be interesting for you to understand where this is playing out in your chart. Okay. Obviously you can look at what's going on in Leo and Aquarius generally, but if you've got planets or planetary bodies at the anaretic degree or very nearby, then that's going to be prominent for you. Okay. There might be other aspects going on that could relate to a bit of a theme for what's to come over the next 18 months as these nodes are going to move backwards through the signs of Leo and Aquarius, because when we get the next nodal shift in 2028, it will be Capricorn and Cancer. So that is going to be very interesting indeed. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the chart and I can show you what is going on. So bear with me whilst I just pull this up on the screen. Okay. Here we go. All right, so you'll see the chart here. And this is happening 26th or 27th of July, depending on where you are in the world. I'm in England. We're currently on British summertime, BST. So it's happening at 1:47:42. So 1:48 if you want to round it up in the morning. Okay, apply your own time zones. So for America, it's going to be happening on the 26th of July. All right, so apply your own time zones as appropriate. But this is the moment. This is when they shift. Okay, because we got the North Node here, 29 degrees of Aquarius, 59 minutes. And likewise here, 29:59, and that's the South Node in Leo. Okay, and if you're not familiar with these kind of reports that I do mark up the chart with certain things that I am drawn to or that I'm guided to show you on these reports. Okay, there's many other aspects going on, but these are some prominent ones, and there's quite a few, including this white symbol that is showing you a yod. So I'm going to come onto that very soon. But for now, let's just cover these details. South node and north node, they are going to shift into these signs. And it's more than likely, again, if you're going to look at your own chart against the transits of this moment, it's very likely that when the north node and south node were in Pisces and Virgo, this shift could be happening in the same house. Okay, it might not. You might have it right on the cusp of two houses, but more than likely, getting towards the end of their cycles in Pisces and Virgo is likely to be in the same house as when they shift immediately into these other signs. So whatever house that's happening in, that's going to be like a big thing for that particular house or those houses, because it's the two different houses. They're of course opposite because they're in the opposite signs, and it is the south node and the north node opposite. Using this chart as an example, and this is just a chart to show you the event. Okay, it's an astrological event. It's a freeze frame of the cosmos. It's not a natal chart. It is a chart to show you the transits. But if we are looking at this as if it was a natal chart, and we've got, the south node in the fourth house and north node in the 10th, well, there's going to be stuff relating to foundations, certainly when it comes to the detachment aspect, all right, and the visibility wounds that might be coming up within your foundations, within your family. And the north node, being driven more in that direction of individuality and uniqueness, but with that idea of working together in a group, whether that is just a group or a collective, is very much based around work life here. So that's just to give you an example. But it might be happening, in your sixth house where you are of service and what you do on a day-to-day basis. It could be happening in your first house of the self and how this is going to impact on your own journey as a sovereign being. Okay. So take what resonates. It's always worth looking at it against your own chart, because these are just general messages based on the transits of what's happening. With a natal chart, that's where you get a specific horoscope. Okay. Now let's continue. So I've marked up some things, and I wanted to point out, first of all, this over here. So this arrow is showing where the midheaven of the chart is. And if we're looking at the midheaven of a chart in a natal chart, that's going to show aspirations. And certainly if it's a career reading that's being done within the natal chart reading, it's going to show career aspirations, what you aspire to be, what you aspire to do, and it can relate to purpose as well. But also it's like the pinnacle of the chart. So it's what you're aiming towards. So here, if we're looking at this as an event, the midheaven is in Aquarius, the same as where the North Node is going to be moving into. So it is very much about the path that is geared towards change, because Aquarius is also about change. So it's change, but it comes from a place of individuality and uniqueness. So change up the approach. Be more unique. Be more you. Okay, and it's about aspiring to actually own who you are. Pluto is also there in Aquarius, so we know there's major transformation going on. And, yes, again, we'll bring in the technology side of it. So aspirations in terms of how we can use it to work for us, to transform what we're doing in a positive way, how that's going to enhance our path, but by maintaining and retaining individuality. Okay. So I thought that was interesting that the midheaven of the chart is also in Aquarius for the actual event. And then the ascendant of the chart, look at what's going on here. So the ascendant of the chart, how this event shows up to us, as in the nodal shift, the moment of the nodal shift, how it shows up to us is in Gemini. So it's a perspective shift. It's a perspective shift, and it's one that opens up a period of time, if we're using this as a theme, to set forward the next 18 months. It allows us to be curious with this shift in perspective of how we need to apply these lessons going forward from what we've learned from the Pisces Virgo nodal period into now, with that determination of the fixed energy. Now, Gemini is obviously mutable energy, so there is some flow here. So it is showing up with some flexibility. But notice Mars, 19 degrees, 41 minutes. Look at the ascendant, 19 degrees, 42 minutes. There's only 1 minute in it. I'm a poet, I didn't know it. There's only 1 minute in it. So Mars is right there. Like, the masculine energy is showing up as this event shows up. So this could be a major like wake-up call for the masculine, but also remember me saying about embracing uniqueness. We've got that on the one side, and we've also got this courage. So if we look at the Leo energy, that drive to be seen for who we are and to own it, to be courageous, to be a leader. Well, Mars is going to support that energy because it is about action and it is about owning things, doing things, okay? But certainly supporting a perspective shift here. And interestingly, with Ceres, the asteroid Ceres, the other side of the ascendant, it made me feel, and this was just an intuitive thing, that, you know, we've got like big masculine energy one side and we've got feminine energy the other side. So there's a softening to this. But there's also something about planting the seeds enables the action to come forth. Because Ceres is kind of ahead here and the ascendant arrow is in between. So it's almost like holding back the masculine. You know, we've got masculine energy within us regardless of gender or how we identify. So it's that drive that's within us. We've got to plant the seeds first and nurture ourselves through the process. We plant the seeds, that which we want to grow, okay, in this next period of time, and allow ourselves to maybe look at things from a different perspective or have different options available to us. That then enables us to take action, or even for opportunities to come forward, to present themselves to us, to be seen, to be revealed once we've planted the seeds. So I felt that was very profound. Okay, and we're in the driving seat with all of this, by the way. We're the ones that are in control of our own destiny, as cheesy as that sounds. But really, you know, I'm sure the past few years have taught you that we make our own reality. So it's about getting on board with that. Okay. And I know I mentioned Saturn and Neptune being in retrograde. 14 degrees, Saturn, 44 minutes. Neptune, 4 degrees, 18 minutes. But look at those degrees lining up. 144, anybody? There's a lot of fours there. Okay. So that number could be significant for you. But, you know, I feel that there's very much this ascended master energy that's around supporting us with this. And let's not forget, this is happening in Aries. There's quite a bit of energy there in Aries. So, you know, we do need to lead by example here. Okay. Let's have a look at the aspects. So where we've got the South Node in Leo, there's a grand trine. So this is harmonious. Okay, there's a grand trine that's connecting the South Node to the Moon in Capricorn and also Chiron in Taurus. Okay, so the trine would have been there when the South Node was also in Virgo, because that would have been 0 degrees, and then that would have made a grand Earth trine. But because of the shift, and you know, there's that like 1 degree in it, there's still this grand trine going on. And the South Node is also in trine to Eris, Vesta, and Pallas in Aries. Okay, asteroid energy. But in terms of the grand trine, the cardinal energy that leads the way is Capricorn. So the moon, our emotional home. However, the moon is at detriment in Capricorn because the moon rules the sign of Cancer. So it's an uncomfortable place for the moon because the moon in Capricorn doesn't want to feel any emotion. Saturn rules Capricorn. No emotion, just get it done. No feelings. Okay. So what's actually driving us forward with this nodal shift and actually understanding this next 18 months is going to be about learning to have the courage within to show ourselves for who we are and to be individual and unique and embrace ourselves within the collective arena, okay, and how we navigate forward. For this kind of moment of clarity, we need to remove emotion from it. We need to be focused in terms of what we're all about. And that is also driven by worth and values because of that Taurus energy. But Taurus knows what they like. They know what they want. Okay, it is also quite confident energy. As long as the worth and values are in check. And there's also a message here about inner resources, by the way. So we need to make sure that we are willing to invest our energy in the places that deserve our energy. And perhaps we have to take emotion out of that. That's also going to enable us to stop putting on a show for people that don't deserve our time and energy. Okay? Detach from those cycles. So, you know, the anaretic degree, 29 degrees, can feel quite harsh. It's known as the karmic degree as well. So with this nodal shift, a lot of stuff could be coming up to the surface. Could be revealed, and that might not feel so great, Moon in Capricorn. Okay, but we have to honor our worth and value, Chiron in Taurus, and heal that part of ourselves to detach from the cycles that are not allowing us to show ourselves for who we truly are, or those situations that don't deserve our investment of resources. Take it as it resonates. The South Node is also in trine to these asteroids, as I mentioned, and Eris can represent chaos and disruption. Vesta is the sacred flame energy, and Pallas is very strategic. So if we're looking at that sovereign Aries energy, we need to be strategic about what we want. And if we've got to disrupt things, we need to disrupt things because we've got to step forth in terms of who we are. If we're going to lead from the heart with regal authority, then we have to own our sovereignty. And that might mean disrupting situations in order to pursue what brings us joy. And we might have to be strategic about this. Okay, there's a warrior energy to Pallas as well. So not only have we got Mars supporting the ascendant of the chart as an event, so we've got that masculine drive support to how this event is showing up for us. If we plant the seeds and we allow the perspective shift, well, this is saying, yeah, apply some strategy. That warrior energy is here supporting this, but we might have to shake some things up. And that's okay if it's in alignment with what we're trying to achieve for ourselves. There is a square, which is a challenging aspect in astrology, from the South Node to Uranus in Gemini. And there is also a square from the North Node to Uranus. So both nodes are forming a square with the planet of sudden change. This is a shift. It's a nodal shift. But this is a major shift in how we are viewing ourselves, how we feel we want to put ourselves forward, what's driving us to make these changes, and what we've learned so far up to this point is calling for this moment. I don't know if you're feeling it, but I'm certainly feeling it. Change is upon us anyway, and has been for some time. But this is about flipping the script, big style. Okay? Just might feel challenging because it's change. And I've mentioned that they're going to be at the anaretic degree. So it's change because it's an ending of a cycle and it's the start of a new one. And the start of this new one means that we've now got to cover all this stuff that may have laid dormant within us about not wanting to show ourselves and how we do need to embrace our uniqueness. Oh, you know, got to face all of this. That can feel challenging. Remember, the moon's in Capricorn as well. It doesn't feel particularly good. So we might need to shut out our emotions on it, but not to become numb to it. Okay. the North Node is in sextile to Chiron as well. So we have that trine from the South Node, but the sextile is also harmonious with the North Node. So it's healing us on the right path going forward. It enables us to, but there is something about this, investment of our own energy, of our time, of our attention, of our money, of our love. Is that now aligned with who we are as an individual? Are we doing it because we want to go along with the crowd? Or are we doing it because that is something that vibes with us as an individual? So asking ourselves those kind of questions going forward. And when we do pose those questions to ourselves, is there some courage that's needed to speak up about this, to make a change, to cause some disruption, to look at things differently? How can we heal ourselves through this? We need to uphold our own worth and value here. And if anything, with the last nodal period with Pisces Virgo, if this has not taught you that the only person you can rely on is yourself, well, you might get further messages about this coming up. This is where the courage comes into it. Okay, it's about leading by example, not leading to show off to people that haven't got any desire to reciprocate. That's done. This is about moving forward with that perspective shift on all of that, but being open to the right situations, connections, because it's more in alignment with the direction of humanity. So if we want to vibe together as a group, okay, it's about maintaining, upholding our own individuality as part of that, because that is sovereign in itself. Okay, but we need to feel worthy of that and have value for ourselves in all of this. Not get lost in the stuff that's not real, that we're seeing, that people are trying to like imitate, or people are trying to be like. They're not real. It's just, it really aggravates me, as you can tell, because it's all about authenticity and the soul's truth. And yeah, there might be situations that do make you sort of put on a bit of a mask, because it could be, a protective mechanism. And these things might be coming up as sort of patterns to work on and look at. I've had my own experiences of this, absolutely. And even sabotaging situations because of wounds and trauma bonds and all of this. Okay, those kind of things, fair enough. They've got to be worked through. They can't just be pushed down all the time. But this is about going forward in the direction of like embracing uniqueness. And if people do not want to like vibe with you, they're not your people at the end of the day. So that's a massive lesson to learn. And it is a wake-up call. But it's important. So yeah, again, we might need to find that courage, but also to detach from the cycles where we've been performing for people. We've been trying to be seen, Leo energy, in situations that are not for us. Waste of time, waste of energy. Okay? Move forward in the direction of individuality and uniqueness and embrace who you are. Right, lecture over for now. I've got to take my own advice on this too, okay? But just keeping it real. So this is the thing. Now, let's go back to the chart, because this yod, I've harped on about the moon in Capricorn, and it is certainly a focus here, because the yod's apex is pointing towards the moon in Capricorn. And at the base, we've got the sun and Jupiter. There's 1 degree between them. So they are conjunct in Leo. We are in Leo season, as we know. And also at the base, we've got Uranus. So supporting this kind of drive to almost like just remove emotion from the equation in order to focus, not to numb, but to focus. We've got that soul expansion of courage, Leo, Jupiter, Sun energy. And also we've got that change, that underpinning change that needs to come in. So without shifting things up, things are not going to change. So if we look at Jupiter in Leo and the expansive potential of that enables more of the heart chakra to open, to lead from that place of regal sovereignty. And it comes from the soul, because the sun is in Leo at the moment, which is, by the way, at home, because Leo rules that luminary. Okay. But we've got major change that needs to come in. So we do have to focus. So there's absolutely a need to focus on what we're trying to achieve here and how we can be real with ourselves in terms of, where we do need to show up that visibility of ourselves, but in a unique way, not in a showy way. Okay. Got to own the Leo energy, just not I want to say bravado. Okay. We don't want any kind of fake shows. We want real shows. This is what it is. And, it's interesting that actually the sun is at home in the sign of Leo, but the moon at this particular point is not. So we've got a very benefic sun energy, the soul essence, but we've got the moon, our emotional home, at detriment. So the feelings for it might not feel great because of recognizing what needs to be accepted to move forward. And it is a point of focus with this yod, finger of God, pointing towards it. However, if we can flip that around and say, okay, it's just asking me to sort of not get too emotional about this. There needs to be some focus and some drive. And I've got to start putting some emotional boundaries in place here. That's going to enable the change. That's going to enable the soul expansion. But courage underpins this, Leo, as well as perspective shifts, Gemini. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention here is the fact that we've got Venus, divine feminine energy, and Mars, divine masculine energy, in mutable signs. So there's a nice flow here, even though they are in square to each other. Okay, so there could be some inner conflict between the feminine essence and the masculine essence. And not only that, Lilith over here is also in the mix, because Lilith is in square to Venus. Venus is kind of here at the touch point, and Lilith is opposite Mars. So, shadow aspects. Are we suppressing our desires for what we're trying to aim towards? What are we holding ourselves back from? How does that relate to how we see ourselves in this mutable energy then? If we look at the masculine and feminine essence combined within us, if there's a bit of friction with that square, it's like the Gemini, mutable energy, Virgo, mutable energy. We're trying to control the narrative here. We know Gemini's asking for a perspective shift, but looking at squares, we look at the shadow aspects, and there might be some sort of, we're tricking ourselves here, because Gemini can be a bit trickster energy. Are we tricking ourselves here when it comes to what we're trying to control? The Virgo shadow aspects. Have we not learned anything from what the South Node in Virgo was telling us? But also, Venus in Virgo, for me, is very much sacred servant energy. But who are we trying to serve here? Is there a bit of friction here because we're wanting to take that action to shift the perspective in terms of our path forward? Are we being too much of a sacred servant to other people? And particularly with Lilith very close to the descendant of the chart, are we looking to other people to motivate us rather than looking at ourselves to motivate us? Are we trying to seek something within someone else that kind of appeases the shadow side? If we're trying to suppress what we truly want to do on our path, like Sag is all about the journey, the quest. It's the bow and arrow. The archer pulls back, bow and arrow, shoots it in the direction of that which they want. What's holding us back from doing that about what we want? Do we feel we can't have what we want? Are we therefore looking for confirmation of that in other people, which is then causing this friction and opposition energy to what we're trying to take action on, and also what we're trying to create with the Mars and Venus energy? Is it causing a bit of an imbalance because we don't quite know? So just reflect on that, because, you know, that masculine drive is enabling us to show up with curiosity and being open to what this next chapter is going to bring forth. Because if it enables us to step forward as our unique individual self with courage, tenacity, and heart-led regal authority, then that is profound and amazing. But to get there, we've got to plant the seeds in terms of what we want. We've got to make sure we've got those options that are aligned for us and for change. But also we need to be comfortable with being seen for who we are. So if there's anything that is holding us back from our path in that respect, then we need to look at that and possibly stop looking for confirmation of wounds in other people. This is where that investment of resources comes in as well. So it's having that kind of regal respect for ourselves, to understand that we are the ones that are in control of our own destiny. And it's important that we trust our own intuition and discernment with things, especially with what I was saying before about not knowing what's real and what isn't. So, you know, we need to understand that if we're looking for confirmation of things, that's actually just kind of boosting these shadow wounds, that's going to create that friction, because it's going to make us feel like we need to suppress what we want. No, can't have that. Suppress that. No, don't want to be courageous about that. Don't want to acknowledge that. Don't want to see that. Can't step forward as being who I am. What if somebody says this, blah, blah, blah. And then if we're looking for it, because our inner condition creates our external reality, we know this. So if we're actively looking for that in other people, in other situations, in other places, and it shows us that confirmation, it's going to give us that false sense of reality. It's the soul that knows, okay? And we have got this soul expansion, soul growth when it comes to courage. It can still feel uncomfortable. Change can still feel uncomfortable because we're changing. Familiar is the comfort zone, after all. But this is about recognizing that this shift in itself, you know, is a big deal because of, you know, the path pivoting slightly in terms of being driven by our individuality. But at this point, we know who we are. Are we showing ourselves for who we are? That's the question. Okay. Are we putting on a show for people who don't really deserve a seat in the audience? Okay. I'll leave you with that. Let's just stop sharing. So, yeah, it's absolutely humanity driven. And the other thing I will say is that obviously Aquarius does represent change, because Uranus rules Aquarius as well. And we know that there's innovation. I've mentioned this before. We're innovating ourselves throughout this whole process also. But there's something quite liberating about this. So freedom comes into play. So if we're wanting to live a free life, to be who we are, to embody who we are, to embrace who we are, and to be seen for who we are, that is going to give us the freedom that we desire. But it's natural because of how society is, because of how certain connections are, and what we have to learn. Remember, there's a purpose to everything, but it's showing us what's real, what isn't. Where do we need to find the courage? Where do we need to show up a bit more as our true authentic self? And where do we need to just stop putting on a show for people that just don't deserve any more investment of your energy? Okay. And to get to that point, we do have to go through certain things, because otherwise, how do we know? And this is what I mean about shift, change. It can be uncomfortable because it breaks with that familiar, and it breaks with that kind of perceived norm of how things should be. But remember, we're coming out of that period of South Node in Virgo where we have to detach from the idea that anything should be anything. We can't control it. All we can control is our intuition and use our discernment, because a lot of what we see is not real. Okay, social media is saturated with this at the moment. So use your discernment. Don't just believe everything. Like, there's a message in this anyway. There's a message in this anyway. Question everything. This is what helps you understand from your discernment, that recognition. And you need to go through that process in order to get that clarity. And it can be quite arduous, because if there's layers and layers and layers on top of, you know, self-limiting beliefs, other people's expectations, and you're kind of like removing these layers and getting to the truth that's within your soul, okay, which enables you to step forward in that individual, unique way that sets you free from, you know, feeling like you can't be who you are. But that comes with change, okay? And it does take that regal, heart-led authority that the Leo energy can support with. It's just about shedding the unhealthy ego or any kind of facade that is simply a show for other people that don't even deserve that energy. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm wishing you all the best for this nodal shift. Remember, it's happening early hours of the morning, British summer time, on the 27th. Apply your own time zones. It's going to be the 26th for people in America. And, you know, obviously the nodes are going to be at the anaretic degree for some time as it works back through the minutes. So there could be stuff that's revealed. There could be some kind of, you know, hidden stuff coming up. There could be just more revelations of what needs focus on. But remember, with that yod, the focus is definitely there with the moon in Capricorn, almost saying, don't numb yourself. Don't shut out emotions to numb yourself. This is about recognizing that it might feel a bit weird or not so good, but it's about actually saying, well, okay, I can't get too emotional about this. I've just got to sort of deal with the change that's coming up. I need to embrace this courage to really be who I am. And, you know, next month we've got eclipse season starting. So that's another portal opportunity for enlightenment, expansion, change. Okay. So, yeah, let's just embrace the energy. Let's embrace the energy, and let's allow that Leo South Node to work as a springboard towards the Aquarius North Node, and to understand that with that fixed energy, there can be determination. So this is about a determined drive on the path forward. You know, we've got fire there, the South Node, that fire that allows you to rise up. Okay. And then with the air energy of Aquarius, allowing more things to open up. You think of air and the freedom of air that brings, that expansive space. It enables us, it kind of allows us to really sort of, you know, the fire energy allows us to kind of metaphorically burn those bridges of the things that are not working for us, that don't align with that regal authority, and to actually launch us more in the direction of that freedom, like free as a bird, out in the air, you know, that we're striving towards. But we need to be individual. We need to own who we are and recognize that we are unique in our own way. So that's very important, to uphold our own identity, especially during these times. Okay. So I wish you all the best, and I'm going to try and do more of these reports. I've had a bit of a break for a few months. So comment below if there's anything that you'd like to see me cover specifically. There might be some changes, slight changes with the channel itself, but I wanted to get this message out there so that you could have it for the nodal shift. But if there's anything specific that you're kind of interested in hearing about, do let me know, because feedback is always important, and we'll go from there. But just like many of you out there, I'm also navigating my own shifts and understanding what is right for me in terms of what I'm doing to help the collective. Okay, so it's important to understand what you all want from the astrology and if it's helpful for you at all. Okay, so I'm sending you all the best, and I'll see you soon. Take care.